Lots of people have joined the webinar, so that's really awesome. Thank you for coming along and joining us today. My name is Nick Olsen. I am the marketing manager at PredictWind. I'm a lifetime sailor, and on the panel today, we've got 4 of our support team who are there to answer your questions in the Q&A panel. They're experts in pretty much everything to do with weather and especially the PredictWind ecosystem. So, you know, weather routing, all our forecasting, all that sort of stuff. They're all sailors and very experienced sailors at that. So great to have them there. So that, yeah, they can answer any of your questions in the Q&A box there. Any questions that don't get answered in there, we will contact you afterwards with a reply to that, or if there's a question that they can't answer. So yeah, thank you very much for coming to join us. We are here to talk about weather routing, and in particular the new PredictWind weather routing algorithm and features that we've added into that recently, and there's still a couple there coming. So before we get into that, just a little overview of PredictWind. We have been around for 12 years. We're always working on making our product better, which is partly why we're here doing this webinar today, to talk about the weather router. We do run our own weather models, which are called the PWG and the PWE. They are run at 50 kilometer resolution globally, and then they are also run at 8K and 1K to give the high resolution modeling in coastal areas. So some new models in our quiver of models that we have there. So we have the ECMWF, which we've had for quite some time now. Paid weather source, the #1 weather model in the world. We have recently, very recently, in the last week, added in Spire and UKMO. Spire in particular is really interesting if you are crossing oceans. Spire has the largest nano-satellite network in the world, and they use a system called radio occultation to gather initial conditions data, which is fed into the weather model, and they're able to do that all over the globe. So that means that in remote locations where other models don't always have as much initial condition data, which is observational data that goes into the model, the Spire model does have it. So it performs very well. And then we have UKMO, and which is the #2 global model, and then we have the GFS, the PWG globally, and the PWE globally, and as I said just before, high resolution. And then we've also added in the AROME, which is in Europe, the NAM, which is North America, and the HRRR, which is also North America. So models, yeah, we'll talk about them a bit more and how we deal with all that. So how do we see all this stuff? We have the PredictWind apps. So we have, today we will be on the PredictWind website because that has most of the new features in it already. As I said, a lot of the stuff is still a work in progress. And so we have the PredictWind app and the website. So that's what we use when we are at home or at the dock, or just going somewhere locally, or just doing a short coastal trip. Anytime that we're in mobile data or Wi-Fi range, it does a huge amount of features. You know, we've got daily briefing, we've got tables, we've got wind maps, we've got cape maps, we've got gust maps, we've got sol lunar, we've got observations. It also has our tools, you know, weather routing, departure planning, ocean data. So yeah, huge amount of information in the PredictWind app and website. But then if we're going to go offshore, excuse me, if we're going to go offshore, we use the PredictWind offshore app. And that has the tools in it. So, you know, that has the weather routing, the departure planner, spot forecasts. It has satellite imagery. but all the weather comes into that in grid format, which is just simply a format that we can effectively transfer weather files, and it can view those weather files in there and compress those files. So we use that on our satellite or SSB connection. It saves all the data offline. And yeah, we're not going to use it today, but that is a place where we do lots of our weather routing. And but that we can probably do another webinar on that once that's all fully got all the new features in it. So let's just get into it, I think. So I've come over here, and I'm going to start with this is actually, so we're in the PredictWind forecast website, and I'm on some tables, and you might think, well, what it's tables got to do with weather routing? So what I thought I would do is explain a little bit about what weather routing is and why we would use it. And so these tables here are set, they're giving me a whole bunch of data for one location, for one very specific location. And so in that one location, I've got this huge big data set. You know, I've got all the models there, and you know, but it's just for that one spot, and I can look at everything for that one spot. But what the weather routing does is it gives me all this data for wherever I'm moving to in my boat at that time. And so knowing where I'm going to be in the weather systems and having all this information for where I am along my journey is one of the reasons why we use weather routing. Weather routing also tells us the fastest and safest way to get to where we want to go, and we can use that in different ways to achieve both of those goals. So depending on what you're doing, if you want to get there fastest, you know, let's say you're racing, then you know that's the goal, right? Is to navigate your way through the weather systems to get to the end goal as fast as you can. The other side of that, which is also when you're getting there as fast as you can, is safety, and knowing where you're going to be in relation to the weather is probably you know, paramount to safety at sea, because it gives you the ability to not get caught out in bad weather, to avoid it, to change, you know, slow down, speed up, change your course, go different places, to understand how you're going to you know, where you're going to be in the weather systems and how you might avoid something. Let's get into what we have. And so what we did was we basically rewrote our weather routing algorithm, and there's 5 years of development has gone into this, huge amount of resource, and we did that because we wanted to have the very best weather routing tool, and we think we've done that. We did a study and compared it with other weather routers to test its performance, and then back tested all of those. And yeah, the results are on our website. We have that. Just flick over to that there. We actually have a whole report on it there that anyone can read if they would like to, and goes into exactly what we did to test it. So let's go back to our weather routing. So where did what have we done? Let's start at the beginning. So before you, so I'm going to talk about what we've done, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about weather routing and how we use it. We have done some stuff in here in our routing preferences. So before you do any weather routing, you want to get your polars close to your boat's performance. So that's how the weather router knows where you're going to be, is from your polars, because your polars are how fast the software thinks your boat is going to go. So I'm in routing preferences here, and if I can choose a predefined boat, there's a big list of them here, and yeah, we can choose our boat or one that's like it. What should we be today? Well, I've already done that, so let's just stick with that. So we choose that. We also have our advanced polars. You can see down here that you can change all that, and you know, change your polars. We have power and sail polars as well. Something we've changed here is you can change the percentage of your polar for upwind and downwind. So let's say you don't think the polar's doing what you want. You know, you're going too slow upwind. You could change this percentage here to 110% or whatever. Or downwind, you could, you know, same thing. If it's too slow, you can make it faster. Motoring settings have changed slightly. We'll motor at whatever speed when your boat speed to the destination is less than X speed over here. So you can obviously tidal and ocean currents what we've changed there is that you can choose which current model you're using. So if you're on the professional version of PredictWind, you can change your currents, and then you can view them and look at the difference that it makes to the routing when you've changed to the different current model. Down the bottom here, this is a racing sailors thing really, but there might be some cruisers that find that the forecasts are always below what they're experiencing. So down here we have some advanced routing adjustments, and we can scale the true wind speed for our routing. So that will change the you know, we could add 100, you know, 10% to that, or we could make that 90%, and that would change the wind speed the whole way through our routing. We can also put a degree adjustment in. We have our comfort settings, and you can see here we've changed this as well, that you can actually change that to upwind, reaching, downwind. You can change your comfort settings. So that'll make the router try and avoid those conditions. Personally, I wouldn't have them at 25 knots. And we'll go back to the weather router. Let's get into our weather routing algorithm. And so you can see here that I've run a route just before we started, and you'll see that we now have all our models in there, our global models in there. And so there's now 6 models in there. And what is good about this is that we can see in the example that we have here that they're actually all doing much the same thing. So we've got a fair bit of consensus with the models. So up here, we have, you know, up to about here. So let's scroll forward a bit. We've got a fair bit of agreement between our 6 models, and they're all going the same way. And we would have updated our weather routing before we got to this spot. What we are going to do in here is we are going to add corridors. So what are corridors? So this was, they'll probably get these in there after I finish the webinar. What are corridors? If we have a look in this over here, it gives us some idea of corridors. So what a corridor is it's wider when it doesn't matter so much where you go. So 0.1% of the route, you can go, you know, you can just sail your boat as fast as you want. If it's really critical that you go through a particular area to get to the next part of the weather, the corridor will go really, really narrow. And so to bring that back to our example here, if the corridor was wide here, in this area here, we could sail anywhere in this area. So, and you'll notice that we've taken the dots off the weather routing there, because we don't want you to follow the dots. We want you to follow the averages. We want you to look at the corridors and just sail your boat to the next critical area, essentially, where it matters that you're sailing you know, where you need to be to get to the next part of the weather systems. Let's run a long route. So what we've done is we have added in the ECMWF Ensemble. What we've done there is we have taken, so I probably should explain what that means. The ECMWF Ensemble is where they run a slight variation in the forecast for, I think it's 50 models. And so they get 50 outcomes. And from those 50 outcomes, we actually average them. And why we're doing that is to keep things, to make something really complex and keep it a bit more simple. What it means though is that you can run a route up to 30 days. It has its limitations. It's really averaging stuff out, but it's a whole lot better than seasonal charts, but it will pick up the big features. So if we scroll through here, if I just scroll this through, and you'll see that we get to 10 days, and it switched over to the Ensemble. And so for the UKMO Inspire, they run 7 days. The model runs for 7 days, and then it'll use ECMWF, and then at 10 days, all of the models start using the Ensemble. So from 10 days onwards, they're all using the Ensemble. So yeah, that's a pretty cool new thing. Means that you can route pretty much anywhere, and you get you get results. And as I say, a lot better than using seasonal charts, because it's actually for the next 30 days. So yeah, it's pretty cool, the normal routes. So, and again here, this is pretty cool that we do have our agreement between all the models here, and then we've got a split, around this area here, and then a bigger split here. But we would have updated our weather routing here, and here. And so we wouldn't have that split as we go. Probably just should cover off why. So how do we do all of this? How do we do this weather routing? We run it whether you're in the PredictWind website, the PredictWind app, or the PredictWind offshore app. We calculate. You say, I say, it knows it's me, and it says, oh, it's Nick, and it sends where I am and where I want to go to, and any waypoints that I've put in. It sends that off to the PredictWind servers, and the PredictWind servers calculate my route. Now, what they're doing when they calculate the route on our servers is they are using, it's calculating using all 6 models there, and it's using current modeling, it's using high resolution modeling. Basically everything it can get, it's using, and it's doing it on our servers. And so that could be anywhere between 50 and 100 megabits of data to calculate the route. So that to do that, if you were to download all those grids and do that, that might take half an hour, like even on a high-speed connection, to get all those grids in, load them all in, and do that. It's a considerable amount of time and a huge amount of bandwidth to do that in data. And whereas the PredictWind router, because it's just sending off those little bits of information and who I am, and it's using my polars to calculate that, it's a 9 kilobyte file. What can we do here? So let's get into some other stuff that we've added in. So up here, I have a well, let's start with waypoints. So let's say I wanted to, I'll just move my zoom thing there. You can see I've got a whole lot of saved routes in here for go north of Bermuda for some reason. So I could come up here and I can click on the little plus button there, and I can add a waypoint. So I could add one that would make me go to the waypoint, but we don't really want to do that because we just want to force the router to go around. Let's say I wanted to go north of Bermuda. So I would put a starboard rounding waypoint in, and that's on my track here. and I can drag that to Bermuda, and now I'm going to force the router to go north of Bermuda. So I'll calculate that. And so that means that it's going to use it as a rounding mark, essentially. So really useful if you are racing. You know, there's often, you know, marks that you have to go around. And so rather than constraining the router to go to that point, we can use it as a rounding mark. And so the router might go well north of it because it might go, oh, well, it's much better to not go close to it. And so that's why we have that. And so we can add a port or starboard rounding in or a go-to. As you'll see over here, we have also added in a boundary. So again, why would we want a boundary? Quite a few reasons. Shipping lanes, exclusion zones, areas where you don't, you know, you don't want to go. You might want to avoid a particular area. Wow, that's given a pretty crazy route up there, hasn't it? You'll see here that the PWG in the blue and the PWE in the red, they basically hit the mark. They thought it was best just to go around it. We can see the UKMO and the ECMWF in the black there and the GFS. They've all decided the route is better to go higher than Bermuda. So that shows how that works. So yeah, so let's go back to adding an exclusion zone. So I can click on this little thing up here. And so I read recently that somewhere down here that you're not allowed to go into the territorial waters and boats are getting fined. I can't remember exactly where it is right at the second. But if I come down here and I wanted to stop the router from going through that area, I clicked on this little icon up here, and then now I can click on the map and I can add an exclusion area. And so I've got this box here, and I've clicked them together, and so now the router will not go through that area. So I'll just delete that waypoint there, and I'll grab my start and my finish waypoints, and we'll make the router have to deal with that. So while that's doing that, if we zoom out, you'll see that I've actually got all the ice boundaries in for the Vendée. So this whole area is an exclusion zone. It won't go. The router will not go through that area. So yeah, you can use the there's so many things that you could use this exclusion tool for. And you know, there's let's say there's an area where there's adverse current that you don't want to go into, or you know that it's there's lots of islands there or lots of shallow water. You can avoid that area by using this tool. Or as yeah, I might have been BVI, so somewhere around there, that you're not allowed to go into the territorial waters. So pretty handy to be able to route yourself around it. And yeah, so something else I should probably talk about while that's calculating is the land avoidance. So the new algorithm, we improved its ability to avoid land. So it's using the land as a hard barrier. It won't go across the land, but it's not taking into account any depth. So you want to make sure that you are looking at your route and you are using your seamanship skills to avoid you know, any shallow areas. It is not taking into account depth. So it is simply the land avoidance is simply that it is avoiding coastal boundaries. So just be aware of that. That every time it's doing one of these calculations, it is doing calculating the routes. It's doing 1 billion calculations. So we can see there it's made its way around the exclusion zone that we put in. So that's pretty cool. And if I want to get rid of the exclusion zone, I can just click on that and delete the boundary. Am I sure? Yes. And it's gone. So pretty cool. let's go into our tables, because we've done a fair bit of stuff in here, and we have our I haven't got motoring settings turned on, but you'll see here we have our a motoring column. I probably should have run a route with one on. Whenever we're motoring, it'll tell us, and which is pretty handy, and it'll tell us the amount of time that we're going to be motoring on that route. So pretty good for planning your trip. Have I got enough fuel for this trip? I'm going to be motoring for 10 hours or whatever. Yeah, really handy thing to have. It was requested by a lot of customers, and so we added that in. Obviously, we've got our summary and route there. So something that we have over here is our atmospheric table that's new, and what we can look at here is that we can see all the pressure. Obviously, if we can see, we can compare this to our barometer. My workmate Smiley, he told me I had to mention barometers, and he's a very experienced sailor, and still does a huge amount of sailing offshore. And it's an essential tool on board a boat. And if you can see your barometer falling, you know that, let's say you'd seen some bad weather coming in the models, that it'll confirm that, and also you can confirm what it's doing here in the tables. So yeah, pretty cool. And we did a bit of work on the export functions, and so there's more ways that you can export your route and put it into some navigation, into a navigation tool. So let's spin back here. Yes, that's what I was going to do. So anyway, I've just flicked over to the ocean data here. As I said before, we can choose the model that we're using in our weather routing, and we can compare them. So I can compare, I could run it with, I could use different models, and I could compare the routes. So I can compare my previous routes. I mean, this is going to flick around because I've run routes in different places, but you can see there's the routes we ran before. And so I can compare those routes. If they were all in the same place, that would, we'd be able to compare the differences between the models. So, and you can make some of those other changes we talked about before, and then compare your routes. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. Rightio, let's just, so something else that has been added in. If I click on this, this route here, and you'll see we've added, you can click anywhere on the, so in the past, you used to click on the little dots, and it would give you some information. But weather routing is, the weather routing tool is super powerful. Even if you didn't have any weather to go with it, you can get so much information from the routing itself. So if I click on that, if it was a time that I was motoring, it would tell me. It tells me what the wind is, what the wind direction. It tells me the gusts. So, I instantly, this is what I was saying at the beginning, that it can tell me anything that I want to know along the route. If there's a huge difference between the average and the gusts, I know that it's pretty unstable air, and not in this case. And it's got our course, it's got our speed. I'm sailing on port at 49 degrees true wind angle. The current, there's no current out here, which we can see in the, need to turn that off. We've got our wave height, wave direction, period, pressure, temperature, rain, and cape. So, it's just, there's so much information anywhere along this route. We can find that. I found the questions. How do I choose which route model to follow? So that's pretty much covered by our corridors. So the corridors, where all the models, so what we're looking for there is consensus. And so if we've got 3 or 4 doing the same thing, and then 2 others doing different things, we follow the ones that are doing the same thing because there's more confidence that they're going to do the right. There's more confidence they're going to do the right thing because because there's four models, and these aren't just any models. We've got like the best weather models in the world, literally the best. And so if 4 of them are saying the same thing, well then that's that's what you should follow. So we're looking for trends and consensus, and you'll find in the shorter term there is nearly always consensus, in the next 12-24 hours. And so you just route to there. If they're all splitting apart after that, well, there's a new weather model update every 12 hours. And so you just update, and then you'll see that as time goes on, that they will all line up. I was taking my kids sailing this weekend, and I could see, all week the forecasts have been a bit different. And then this morning, when I woke up and I looked at the new model run, all of a sudden they're all starting to line up. So yeah, really, really good. Longer term, we've got the ECMWF and SPIRE and UKMO in our validation study that we did of those models. They long term, they are more accurate than the others, than any model actually. There's a lot of studies on that sort of stuff. When you click along, someone who says here, when clicking along the route, why do you not see the boat speed? You do see the boat speed. It is the boat speed is on there. Can you join exclusion zones if they overlap? Yes, you can join exclusion zones. No, we don't show apparent wind angle in the routing. Yeah, just a no. And yes, someone's asking about current and tide. So tide is only used where we have the high resolution tidal models, and we are adding in more of those. We have a model lined up, and we are about to early next year, I believe. Don't hold me to this. We will be running more high resolution modeling, and the weather router is better in every aspect than the router before, and it's actually better than any other router out there. Someone's asked, is the weather routings do not update at the same time? We used to say to update after the ECMWF because that was the last one to update, but the SPIRE model is actually updating after that now. So you could update again after that if you wanted to. I mean, the beauty of the way that the PredictWind router works is that it's only a small file to update that and get the latest weather. So yes, you can just run it again if you would like. So for the person asking about how does it work on Lake Michigan, the Great Lakes, works very well. So even the previous PredictWind router did very well, and our models do very well on the Great Lakes. And we've had people using PredictWind that have won the Chicago Mac race. So yeah, it works very well. To get the little pop-up, you just click on the route. You just go click on the route somewhere along the route. Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. I don't think I've missed anything critical. If I have, feel free to contact our support team and ask them any questions. They're there to help. In our mail out that we did on this the other day, if you got that, which you should have, because you're on this mailing list about the webinar, there's actually a 1-week free trial for the weather routing in there, so give that a go. And yeah, feel free to ask us any questions. Thank you very much, and have a good evening or day, depending on wherever you are in the world. Thank you.